Hey there, friends and family. My last update video was about spending Christmas and the holiday season here on Pohnpei, and one of my friends sent me a message and said that they had noticed that there was 2 different languages in that video and some of the music and things, and so they asked me about that, if both languages were spoken regularly, and also asked if I knew how to speak both languages, if I understood both languages. And so I thought I would take that question, and I answered it briefly on Facebook, but I'm going to answer it a little bit more thoroughly here for you now. So one of the things that you have to understand about Pohnpei is that there is the main island of Pohnpei where I am, and it's roughly 13 miles across, and I believe about 30 to 40,000 people. I'm not sure that the latest census numbers are quite old, so I don't know the exact number. However, there's also what's considered 5 major outer islands. And those outer islands each have their own people group and their own language. Some of them are very similar to the main language of Pohnpeian here on the main island of Pohnpei. Some of them are quite different. The church that I attend has a lot of Mokalese people from the island of Mokil. Those people, from what I understand, speak a language very similar to Pohnpeian. They can kind of understand each other, but it is their own language. Some of the other outer islands speak a language entirely different. So really you have the 5 major outer islands and you have the main island of Pohnpei, each one having their own language. You have 6 languages. Of course, many of those people from the outer islands end up moving here, and so there's different villages filled with those different outer island peoples. So all of those languages are here on Pohnpei. Also, this is an estimate. I've asked some different people about it, but there's roughly 1,000 Filipino people here. And of course, they speak their own language. Now, the interesting thing is that the government language of Pohnpei is, the government language of the FSM, the Federated States of Micronesia, is English. And the reason for that is because not only does the state of Pohnpei have all of these different languages, but the state of Kosrae has a different language, and the state of Chuk has a different language, and the state of Yap has a different language. So when you have all of these senators coming to meet for Congress, they're all speaking a different language. So the national government does use English. So I've mentioned before about me going to Congress. I do understand them. All of their dealings there are pretty much done in English. An interesting thing about the church that I attend, on Sundays they do have an English service, and then they have a Sunday school where they have both English and Pohnpeian services, and then they'll have a main Pohnpeian service after that. So I would say this, that English is very much spoken here on the island. Many of the young people understand it. Some of the older people do not, but many people here do speak English, and it is commonly used. It's not a problem for me to go into a store and order something in English at a restaurant or to try to communicate with people. For the most part, that's not a problem. Every once in a while you run into somebody with limited English or something like that. It can be a problem. But for the most part, English is accepted here. And of course, I mentioned the outer islands. They are a much smaller majority. So the other main island here is Pohnpeian, or I'm sorry, the other main English is Pohnpeian, and that's used quite a bit around the island. The answer to the question about do I speak anything other than English, I don't. And because English is so widely used here, there are even some missionaries who have come and spent long periods of time here without learning anything other than English. However, for me, if I was planning on staying for a long period of time, I would want to learn, to be able to communicate and to be able to understand what's going around me when people are not talking in English. However, because at this point I feel like God's probably only called me to be here for a year or maybe a little bit over a year, that it's really not worth trying to learn a language in that amount of time. Also, a point of interest would be that the radio station is actually done in about, probably I'd say 90 to 95% of it is in English. Just a few programs we have that are done in Pohnpeian by a pastor that's now moved to the States for some health reasons, but is trying to come back here. But he was a pastor for many years at the church I'm attending now, and he has recorded many, many broadcasts in Pohnpeian to air on the radio. And you may ask, why do we do that? Why do we broadcast in English? Well, I would say one of the main reasons is for the amount of material. For us to broadcast in Pohnpeian, it would be almost impossible to find that amount of music or to find the amount of preaching that we would need, or those kinds of things. But the other secondary reason is because we reach the whole island, really, and even some of the outer islands, we need to be able to reach all of those different people groups. And because a large majority do speak English, we can reach more of the people groups. We can reach the Filipinos who they don't understand Pohnpeian, or we can reach some of the outer island peoples who don't understand even Pohnpeian, but they have learned English. Because English seems to be the language that ties all of the people groups together. And that's my perspective. Again, you may meet some people who live more in the outer villages. In some of those outer villages, English would be less commonly spoken than it is up here in Colonia Town. But that's my perspective and what I've experienced so far. So I hope that answers your question. Maybe some of you others had that question as well. And I would ask that until next time, you continue to pray for Pohnpei.